Self inquiry or meditation is not a doing, but it is simply being. This is very important for us to recognize because when we come to this pointer, there is a tendency for the mind to think we have to do something, and that creates another sense of becoming for the mind that wants to do self inquiry, become realized, and create a whole sense of time and becoming and all of that. Self inquiry is really just awakening to unconditional love. It is a simple recognition that the separate self that we take ourselves to be is only an illusion. So, the separate self, which is the me, which has this grip on every one of us, and it happens through various reasons for everyone. So, as we can always see, a little child, a baby, seems to be free of the me. Just as if we look at many animals, and this is why people always love pets, babies, as we have noted before, they are free of the me. But when the child grows up, there is, due to various factors, the me that is conditioned by society and put into it, which is inevitable. And this is necessary too, because the innocence of the child is out of not wisdom, but out of just being not exposed to anything. So, true wisdom is that which goes through ignorance and recognizes the falsity of it, and therefore is immune to any temptation, any ignorance. Otherwise, the seed of ignorance, the seed of me is there. In every child, every baby, the seed is there and it comes out. So that happens to everyone. But to be free of it by seeing through its activities and thereby getting liberated from it means the seed is destroyed. And being free of the very seed of ignorance is true liberation. And that can happen only through alert awareness each moment. So when we come to this pointer is simply a direct recognition that all that is here is only the divine. Even the word divine is only a pointer. Whether we call it divine, whether we call it God, or whether we call it energy, whatever term one uses, all that is here is only one expression. And that one expression comes forth in infinite ways. That is why the example of ocean is given for instance. Ocean has infinite waves. It's practically endless. And yet every wave is made of the same essence, which is water. So in the same way, this whole universe, which is the ocean of divine energy, has infinite waves, each wave being unique, each body being a wave in this infinite ocean of consciousness. Each being, each species, each plant, animal, planets, everything being waves of different sizes in this one ocean of infinite consciousness. So the core and only pointer is not to take the form of the wave and be identified with it as me, but to recognize that everything is an expression of the same ocean. And when this recognition awakens in us, then that brings forth true unconditional love. And unconditional love, in turn, gives no room for this me to come back. So that's what is called as traditionally bhakti and jnana. Jnana is the recognition and bhakti is love. And bhakti fosters jnana, jnana fosters bhakti. So jnana or wisdom is not gathering knowledge through textbooks. It's not knowing more and more scriptures or more and more commentaries, because that can become another scholarly activity that is endless. So that is not jnana, that is only gathering of knowledge. There is a great deal of difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is very essential in activities that are related to practical aspects of life. Everything we do, whether operating a software or whether making a recipe or driving a car, all of this requires knowledge. We have knowledge, and that knowledge is used by the brain and the body to engage in activities. But this inner pointer is not knowledge of that kind, but it is wisdom which is recognizing the ever present truth. Because in all the other activities, we are gaining something that we did not know, we did not have, whether it be a new skill, a new talent. All those are in the realm of knowledge, where we gain new knowledge and we act out of it. But wisdom is a recognition of what is already here. It is not gaining anything new, but it is only shedding the false. So that is why even in the Upanishads, it is said, neti, neti, not this, not this. That is the way to arrive at truth. It is negation that brings us to the true recognition, not gaining new knowledge. All the pointers of all the great sages is only negating the false. Seeing the false as the false is all that is needed, because the truth is already here. If we look at an ornament of gold and we think it is different from a different ornament, that is, we look at a necklace and a bangle and a ring, and we somehow do not recognize that it is all made of gold, then we don't have to gain any new knowledge. We just have to be freed of this delusion that they are all different. A similar example is when we are looking for something that we are already wearing, and this happens all the time. Let's say I'm wearing my eyeglasses, but I'm still looking for it. I don't have to actually find the eyeglasses because it's already there, but I only forgotten that it's there. So all that is needed is a recognition. That's why recognition is a nice word. Cognition is to know. Recognition is what recognition is. That is to know again. That is to look at what already is there. That which has been forgotten is realized. That is recognition. And when we recognize in this way, then we are free of this delusion. So that's why this is not about gaining new knowledge, but recognizing what already is. And that happens only through negation of the false. So the false sense of me that is rising up and that is acting as the central factor in all our interactions, all our relations, is what veils the truth of our being. And so when we come to self inquiry, all it is pointing to is you are not what you take yourself to be. You are not this body or this mind or any of the limited adjuncts, because there is only one infinite energy that is appearing as all that there is. So, another way to put it is there is no you, there is only that. We can also say you are that. These are all different expressions of the same truth. And every pointer has to be seen for its essence. Otherwise, we can get caught in the word. Even when we say you are that, as the famous Mahavakya is Tattvam Asi, the emphasis is on that, not on you. So that alone is, and what you take yourself to be is that. It is not that there is a you who becomes that. Many times when we listen to this pointer, we think there is someone here who needs to become that, who needs to attain that, and so on. And so the emphasis is not on the you at all, the emphasis is on that. Meaning the one all-pervading energy is all there is. And in fact, even if you look at the order of that very sentence, it says Tat Tvam Asi, that you are. The very emphasis is on Tat, that. So the negation of the you is or me is that. It is not that the me or the you becomes that. It is that which has become the you and the me through ignorance. So to negate the ignorance is to recognize that which already is and which alone is. And that is the core and simple pointer of self-inquiry. So it is not that I have to make effort all the time. I have to find something. We can read some quotes or we can read some excerpts from different responses. For example, people might come with questions which can be given responses, and if we don't know the context, we may read a response and we say we have to do that too. That's not the core pointer at all. The core pointer is simply being still in this recognition, which is the awakening of true unconditional love. And that requires us to be very alert and negate the false. So this alertness is essential, not in the sense of me trying to do something, but just watching the very me. When the me rises in any form, in any interaction, and the best way to even be aware of it is through relations. Many times we think we have to isolate ourselves and thereby go into meditation. But actually, true meditation happens through relationships, through interactions, through activities, because that's where the me comes up very clearly. We may sit silently, we may listen to a chant, or we may engage in some religious activity of some kind, and we may think we are very pious or very religious, and then some interaction, some relation, some issue that crops up, immediately the me might rise up, and we slip out of meditation because we think that is a material activity. But this division between what is considered material and spiritual is already a ignorant fragmentation of life based on the same sense of me. Because in reality, non duality means there is only one divine energy all times. So there is no such thing as division between material and spiritual, religious and secular. All these divisions are only through the mind which wants to divide. So this doesn't belong to any religion, it doesn't belong to any sect. It is a direct pointer that negates all divisions. And that can happen only when we are inwardly free of all divisions through alertness. So the conditioning that has been stored in the memory as psychological self, as the me, is what comes up and tries to divide all the time, and it negates love because we choose based on our preferences of whom to like, whom not to like, what not to like. And all of that is the denial of the oneness of energy, oneness of the universe. The moment we pick and choose, have preferences, likes and dislikes, judgments, all of these are because of conditioning, that is the psychological self or the false self, the me that's operating. So the true pointer, the simple pointer is to be aware of this me. It is not to say I should not be ever caught in the me, because that is again the same me saying, having gathered, let's say, this pointer that one has to be free of the me. Now it can become another activity of the me to say I have to be free of the me. So the way the ego operates is so subtle that it can make everything into a goal and thereby create division. So the subtle pointer is not to even say any should or should not, such as I should be free of me and so on, but simply be aware of it. If the me rises in any form, through any attachment or through any judgment or through any other voice in the head, just being aware of it is all that's necessary. Because when we are aware of it, that very awareness is free of the me. The simple looking without any identification is free always. Even when we are speaking, listening, observing, the actual observing, listening, speaking happens spontaneously through the activity of this divine energy. But there is an instantaneous rising of the observer or the thinker or the listener, which is a product of the past, which comes and interferes with the listening, with the observing, and says, I am listening, I am observing. But the pure listening itself or pure observing is free of this listener or observer. So when we listen or observe in this way, observe our own activity inwardly, that is true meditation. That is to be watchful without any judgment. So inwardly also, there is no judgment of the me rising, that this is wrong or this is right or any of that. There is just a pure and simple, one can say, choiceless awareness of the me rising. And when this choiceless awareness is there, then that is the negation of the me. We can verbally or non-verbally ask the question, who is rising here? For instance, who is judging, or who is attached, who is upset, who gets triggered, who is bothered, right? All of this is the me. So we can either ask the question verbally as to who is this I, because the I that I take myself to be is always this false me. So if I ask the question verbally or non-verbally, who am I? Then we find that the I that I take myself to be is all only conditioned psychological memory. And it constantly changes. It has no fixed position. It takes different forms. When I am watching the news, there is a certain me that might rise because of one's political or nationalistic identification. When being at work, there is a different me rising because of one's image at work. There is a different me rising at home due to the image built in the family, and so on and so forth. So we see that this sense of me has no fixed position, but we think there is a fixed I. And that fixed I that we imagine ourselves to be is the false me. And when we are freed of it, what is there is the true essence, which is the true self, which is peace itself. So to awaken to the ground of peace, which is the true self of all, is to negate the false self by inquiring, who is this me? And one can either inquire or just simply be aware. Both are essentially the same. By being choicelessly aware, we are not caught in the activities of the me. And when we are not caught in the activities of the me, then it has no hold. We can simply watch it as clearly as we watch any phenomenon of nature, because it is also ultimately a phenomenon of nature. It is the same energy that is rising forth as this, what is called as Maya, the deluding potency, the illusory potency that rises as me. And the watchfulness that is free of it is also rising forth from the same energy, which is what we call as grace. So both delusion and grace are ever present. And we don't have to go look for grace. The grace is already here when we are simply watchful and aware without being caught in the net of Maya. So that awareness that is free of the net of Maya, by simply being watchful and alert, is the awakening of grace. And when grace awakens in this way, then that is abiding in peace itself. One can recognize this also through unconditional love. If one sees that everything, everyone that is there, whatever rises, whatever phenomena that rises, whatever people, events, everything is an expression of the divine, then there is unconditional love. Even if there are activities that are, let's say, rooted in what apparently seems to be evil or dark, one can only see the same play of Maya, which is again the same divine energy that is bringing forth that ignorance. So we can then not be judgmental of anyone, but simply be compassionate towards all. And this awakening of unconditional love and compassion also removes the me. Because when we are caught in voices such as, how can he say that, how can she do that, and all the rest, which are constantly coming up in our head as judgments, as what could have been, what they should have said this, they would have done this, this could have, would have, should have, this, all of that is coming forth because we are ascribing agency to apparent separate selves, when in reality everyone is acting out of ignorance when they are engaging in the same activity of the me. So by judging their activity, we are caught in the same me, and then we respond out of it, which then they judge. So this is the endless cycle that goes on between two people, between two nations, between two religions. We see this over and over, same conflict happening again and again. And the way out of this is through unconditional love. When we recognize that it is ignorance that is bringing forth all activities that are apparently evil even, then we are free of judgment, but we are only filled with compassion. And that inner shift from judgment to compassion again removes the me. Then we are not caught in the sense of me, but we only look at everyone with eyes of love and compassion. And when anything rises within, that's also seen with the same eye of love and compassion. So one can be then in this way towards one's own body, towards others, towards all aspects of events, situations, everything that there is. And when there is this unconditional love towards all, that also negates the me. So that is why it is called as sometimes surrender. Surrender again is not surrendering to anyone, but it is the surrendering of the false self. So there is only the divine, infinite one, that is all there is. When we say the word Brahman, for example, it just can be simply translated as infinite. Brahman comes from the same root as Brahat, which means that which is humongous, large, just infinite. So the infinite is all there is, and the finite is only an expression of the infinite. So to recognize that the infinite alone is in all forms is true surrender. It is not surrendering to any authority, to any image of anyone, to any conception of God that one can create through one's own conditioning, but it is to the infinite essence itself. The whole universe is the infinite, and therefore everything that is manifest and unmanifest is all coming forth from the same one infinite. And that one infinite is the root of all, which is what Krishna, for example, in Gita calls Purushottama, that which is beyond the manifest and the unmanifest, that which is the source of everything. And that source of everything is all that there is, that comes forth in every form, everywhere. So to be surrendered to that is to be free of the false self. So when we are in unconditional love, that awakening of unconditional love is true surrender. And it is the same as wisdom. So essentially, jnana and bhakti, or self-inquiry and surrender, are one and the same. It just has a different emphasis, both leading to the same essence. Through attention, we come to love, which is jnana. Through love, we come to attention, which is bhakti. In Tamil, there is a nice expression. They say, Arindu adangudal jnanam, adangi aridal bhakti, which means to know and to be free of the ego is jnana. To be free of the ego and thereby know is bhakti. So either way, it is the same truth. By total choiceless attention, one awakens to unconditional love. By unconditional love, one awakens to total choiceless attention. Because we can see that true attention and love are one and the same. As long as there is no unconditional love, one cannot attend fully to anything. And one can attend fully to anything, then there is automatically love. So even in our day-to-day activities, we will see that when we actually love something, there is immediately total and complete attention. But the moment we have judgments, we have division within, we are trying to use an activity as a means to an end, we are getting to something and we are just looking at this as something to get out of the way of, all of this brings forth inattention because our attention is divided. When there is total attention, then there is love. And when there is true love, there is total attention. So both are one and the same. And to awaken to this total attention, which is unconditional love, is all that is pointed to as essence of Advaita or non-duality. So it is not a doing, but it is a being. Each moment to be alert and to be in total attention and to be thus in unconditional love is all that is needed. It is not to find something through time. It is not to become something tomorrow. It is not to attain some state. All of these are projections of the mind that is always escaping from the now. All that is here is now. And if I am in total attention and unconditional love now, there is freedom. If I am not, then there is the bondage of the me. It's as simple as that. And that is why it is pointed to as very simple, but the mind likes complexity. And therefore we always want something very complex to understand and goals to reach and time to become, because that's the way in which the mind operates, through time, through goals, through becoming. To negate time, goals and becoming is freedom. All of that operates only in the outer realm. In the outer realm, we have time, we have becoming, we have goals. If I have to catch a flight, there is a time to catch the flight. I have to get ready on time, go there. There is time, planning, goals, all that is necessary in outer activity. But inwardly, there is no time, no goal, no becoming. And that clarity and freedom is self-realization. And that can happen only now. So the invitation of satsang is to not postpone it, but to recognize the truth now, that there is only the infinite that is expressing itself in all these ways, and therefore to abide in total attention and love, and thus stillness. And that stillness is what is the peace of being itself. When there is no division within, there is stillness. And that stillness, which is peace, is the essence of this infinite presence. And that is why it is always, all Upanishadic mantras end with the invocation of Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace alone. To awaken to that peace through total attention and love is wisdom. Whatever the situation is, first when we are free of the sense of me and we are looking at the situation with just love and compassion, then that love and compassion has its own action. And the action is one of responsibility. Right? See, true responsibility, the word itself means to be able to respond. That's what responsibility means. Being able to respond which is responsibility, comes only when there is freedom from the me. When there is true freedom within, then we can respond to what is out of that love and compassion. And it can take any form. It depends on the situation. It can take any form, the action, as extremely in the case of the battlefield of Mahabharat, where the Gita was spoken, where the action necessary was to engage in the war. So one can act in outwardly as the situation demands, but inwardly be free of anger or any other emotion that is triggering the action. So outer action can take various forms, and it comes forth out of the wisdom of seeing clearly within. Otherwise, what happens is we are, let's say, triggered by some injustice, then we act out of the trigger. And so we actually, it becomes a cycle of violence or negative actions and so on. So we are affected, and when we are affected inwardly and we act, there is disturbance in our action, and then that causes more disturbance and so on. So not be inwardly disturbed and to act is a great art, and that's part of meditation, to be inwardly undisturbed and outwardly act. And actions are necessary in various situations as it demands. So being aware is not a call to inaction. It's the opposite actually. When we are looking at any situation with the eyes of true love, right? Even when injustice is happening, let's say someone is engaging in an activity that is seemingly very unjust, we can look at them in two ways, right? We can look at them as, how dare he do that? Why is he doing that? And get very riled up about it. Or we can look at it as, he is acting out of the ignorance of being caught in the me, and hence affecting himself and others. Because anyone who engages in, let's say, a violent action, they not only affect others, they affect themselves very badly. So they are causing harm to themselves and to others through their ignorance. So they are inflicting pain on themselves first. So we can look at it with eyes of compassion for the pain they are creating for themselves and others. And then that compassion can stop that activity if it can stop. We can, so there is no partial knowledge. See, knowledge, again, as we said, in the outer realm only there is knowledge which is constantly acquiring, and you need more and more knowledge, right? So if you want to learn a skill, there is no end to it, because you can always become a better musician, you can always become a better coder. Whatever activity one is engaged in, there is knowledge that one can get more and more. Whereas here, there is no such thing as partial knowledge, right? There is only either caught in the me, or we are free of this me, which then brings forth love and compassion. And the action that comes forth from the me and the action that comes forth from love and compassion are completely different. But both are action. There is action in both ways. There is inaction is not possible for any living entity. Actions happen all the time. Inward stillness is what is pointed to. When we are still within, then activities can happen from that stillness. Otherwise, we are disturbed within, and activities happen out of that disturbance. So, the pointer here is to be still within and act outwardly. And that requires great alertness. It's not something that we can tell ourselves. We have to be aware if something triggers and the me rises, one has to be very aware of it and thereby be free of it through that alert awareness. When there is this field of love, then we will find that the me doesn't rise as much, first of all, because when we are seeing everyone and everything as divine expression, then that takes the very ground of me away. So that is the beauty of love, which awakens wisdom effortlessly. There are many who talk about how to meditate, right? But the real meditation is to ask the question, who is meditating? Right? So the question how always implies gaining some knowledge, gathering some method, some practice, or even in this case, how to respond. And this is where all the so-called self-improvement type, literature all come in, how to respond, how to do this, how to do that. But here the direct pointer is who is responding. So if the me is responding, it has a particular flavor of response, and it can fine tune in many ways, but it's still the same me that's responding. But when the stillness is there, then the response is coming forth free of the me. So that's a good way to put it, that the focus is on who is responding and not how to respond. The direct pointer is always to bring forth this love in the heart, which knows how to respond, not me figuring out how to respond. That's why, again, everyone knows, many know the famous verse where Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. He says, give up all dharma and just surrender unto me. Why? Because all dharmas are partial. True dharma is only surrender. So Yudhishthira, for example, was a well-known adherent of dharma. And he got into so many difficulties because dharma is always very difficult to follow. It depends on time, situation. There is various codes for those who know about that famous epic. Most people do. But when we are not caught in that, but just be fully surrendered within, then there is the true freedom of action that comes from that. So that's what Krishna was pointing to in the Gita. He never taught Arjuna what is the various codes of dharma, but he brought him to the point where everything can be burned in the fire of wisdom, which is love. And that brings forth the right action. The teacher comes in different forms. It can be through a friend, as in the case of Arjuna for Krishna. It can be through a book. It can be through life itself. There is a beautiful story in Bhagavatam, for example, of Dattatreya, who says, when asked who's your guru, he says there are 24 gurus, and he gives a list, and 24 is symbolic because there are 24 hours in the day. So literally you are in the presence of teaching every moment if you just observe correctly. He says, earth is my teacher, air is my teacher, the snake is my teacher, the bird is my teacher. So, he says there are 24 gurus we have. So if we observe, then everything gives us a teaching. And the highest teaching is available in our own heart. So we don't have to ever look for this or we don't have to put any trust in a blind way in anything. We can just awaken to this through a rational, clear recognition inwardly. And there are so many outer pointers like this. So we just have to be observant. When we study, even anything we observe can bring about wisdom. We look at, for instance, even you watch news, you can watch it in two ways. You can watch it for some people watch it for getting entertained or getting identified with an us versus them game. But if you, on the other hand, you watch there is a war going on and you see why a war is going on, then you recognize the ignorance that's causing the war, where both sides are fighting based on some, let's say, religious identification and causing immense pain and damage to innocent people on both sides. Then that is right there teaching us that this is what the me does. And that seed of me is within me also. Every human has the seed of the me. And so we cannot judge, for example, a terrorist or a whoever, because it's the same brain and the potential for being a terrorist is in everyone, just as the potential for being a sage is in everyone. So when we watch all this, then we recognize that's all teaching right there, to see that the me can become a monster, but when the me is freed, then the sage, the love, all of that can awaken. So what is a sane way to live then? Do we want to live when we engage in the me in even little ways? We are only for going in the same direction as someone who has gone all the way, let's say, to cause immense damage to people. So if I am swimming in the same waters of me, but I am judging someone else's me as somehow more dangerous, then we are being hypocritical. So